Hi, I'm here with Christian Perez. I'm going to be asking him a set of questions regarding what he thinks of the advancements of technology in the car industry. And so, my first question for you is: do you feel more or less in control when driving newer cars compared to older ones? And if it's a yes to that, why? And if it's a no to that, also why?
First, thank you for having me. I'm excited to answer these questions. And to answer your first question, I actually really like it because it addresses a growing concern of computerizing the driving experience. There's a list of reasons to why new drivers love light performance cars such as BMWs and Mercedes, and it's because a lot of these cars are designed with safety systems that can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. While there's no replacement for the feeling of crafting your skills, manufacturers being able to bring you closer to the limit of driving can be what makes a car fun to drive. Driving at a proficient level can be very difficult for most people, so these safety systems are what bring a lot of drivers closer to the experience of driving proficiently that a lot of these new drivers, might not be typically capable of. End of the day, these new cars are designed to work at your command. And, it's your inputs that maneuver the vehicle. You're still in control of these cars at the end of the day. There's just a few safety nets that kind of fall into place in case, one or two things go wrong that may or may not be in your control. So, yeah, I think these cars are still very much in your control at the end of the day, despite all the new technology and safety systems that they have.
Okay, that was a good explained answer. And so, moving on to my next question is: can you describe a moment where technology either enhanced or ruined your driving experience?
I have a list that can go on forever regarding how technology has enhanced or hindered my experience. One quick example is I drive a 2008 5 Series. It's a rear-wheel drive car that is powered by a V8. And there was a time that I was attempting to pull into the main road. It was a busy section, so being aggressive was appropriate. Once I found what I had thought was a good space to enter, I floored it, but my car hesitated and refused to accelerate for what felt like almost a full second of a delay. It may not sound like a lot, but in a fast-paced environment, a full second could be the difference between an accident or barely making it by. It's an example of traction control kicking in aggressively. It's a technology that assists in preventing spinouts, but in this case, it kind of felt like an overbearing limitation. So it's a mix of user error and outdated technology. Modern cars have vastly advanced in driver assist, and a new car that I've driven, which is several, it hasn't. I haven't felt something like that ever since I've driven newer cars.
Okay, I got that. So, next I'd like to ask is: do you think modern cars still have personality, or are they becoming too similar because of technology?
While I think modern cars are very similar between each other, I wouldn't say it's the fault of the new technologies being too good to omit them, but rather the understanding, the growing understanding of what the average person wants in a car. So every automaker almost has to offer similar technologies to be appealing and competitive. This, however, doesn't mean cars are without their own individual personalities. There is a stark difference between driving a Honda and a BMW at both the spirited level and the normal day-to-day commute. This is just because it's the fundamentals of how each brand engineers their car. It's what makes them it's what makes their identity different beyond a stylistic perspective.
Alright, I got that. That's a good answer. So, how important is it to learn to drive without relying on the driver assisted features?
I believe strongly in learning things from a more analog way. Nothing is perfect, and driver assist systems are no exception to that. There's a very real chance these systems can and most likely will fail at some point. So I'll ask you a question. If you learn to depend on them, how do you think you're going to fare in a scenario where these assist will fail to assist you because of some unforeseen malfunction?
I think it would probably scare me, and I wouldn't. I think it would scare the average person, honestly, and I think I'm not a crazy driver or like a person to push my car to the limit, so I think it would probably spook me a little. One of my systems, started giving out.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that feeling. I thankfully have not been in a scenario like that, but I was a bit foolish one time and turned off one of my safety systems, and I learned a very valuable lesson that day. So even even though these systems are still here, it's still very good to have, proper technique, or at least learn something proper to how a car moves and how you should handle it appropriately.
Yeah, I agree. I think over the few months of I've had my license and my car, I think I've learned to, you know, learn some counter steer in the empty parking lot in the snow, and whatnot. And so, with that in mind, let's turn to this question: has technology made people better drivers or just more dependent drivers?
Oof. So I actually believe it's a bit of a dual-edged blade. While I think the level of road safety has dramatically risen, partially thanks to driver assist systems compared to just 20 years ago, I also believe newer technologies have made drivers more complacent with sharing the road, especially in these new, bigger, and heavier vehicles. New technology such as blind spot warning, lane keep assist, and cameras may have given people a false sense of security. These systems aren't absolute or perfect. They kind of even diminish the responsibility of, performing quick shoulder checks when merging or keeping both hands on the wheel around a turn with moderate speed. Might even promote a lack of spatial awareness with how many camera angles are available on some of these newer cars. Why look out the window when I can just look at a massive screen and see where all angles of my car are? In some cases, all of these systems can actually lead to almost sensory overload. There could be so much going on right in front of you that you briefly forget to look just 5 feet outside the window in front of you. It's it's like I said, dual-edged sword. It could be a really good addition to making drivers, reduce the risk of driving, but at the same time, I think there's a balance to be struck to not completely distract you from the road with these assists.
Alright, that makes sense to have that perspective. And so that moves me on to my next and final question. If you had to choose between a fully analog car and a high tech modern car, which would you pick and why?
Okay, so for me personally, this is a no-brainer. If I had to make that choice today, it'd most likely be a more modern car. While some enthusiasts may look at it as a less pure decision, leaps in safety and quality of life integrations like, cruise control, cameras, sensors, like I just mentioned, the quality of life integrations just, they haven't reduced the driving pleasure, but they made it more accessible to varying degrees of people that, may have more interest or less interest, or even different skill levels. It's important to remember that most of these systems work seamlessly in the background, so that's why it's important to do your own research and decide for yourself what car fits your lifestyle best. New or old, there's a car out there for everybody.
Alright, and I think that brings me to the end of my interview with you. And so thank you for taking your time to answer all of these
Thank you for having
questions.
me.
Of course. And I'll see you around.